Like you're right. You got the hard job. Welcome back to our conversation that we still haven't named, Victoria.
I know.
Um, we will name it though. And my name is Whitney. I'm the host of Impostrix podcast, and I'm here, of course, with my good friend Victoria, who's the host.
Co-hosting this series.
Yes, we're co-hosting the series together.
Yeah.
Um, and Victoria, as you all know, because you're listening to it on her platform, is the host of A Contagious Smile. And she asked me today what we're talking about. And I said, we're talking about you. And that is because I think that we all know so much about how much Victoria cares, how passionate she is. We know about the dogs and the dog ministry. We know so much about what's happening around her and how she supports other people. But what I want to know is about you, Victoria, about your experience, about who you are, what passions you, and what led to A Contagious Smile. We all know Victoria's story is deep, that Victoria is a survivor and a thriver, and that all sorts of stuff has, gone on. She is amazing. And one of the things that I love about you, Victoria, is how positive you are always.
I
And
don't
when
know.
I
Right
tell
now, I'm
you,
not so positive.
whatever, she's not positive because she's mad at me. But when I tell you, I sat down at 2 o'clock on the dot, well, maybe 2:02, and she launched into a story about how she had just had yet another procedure. But why is she like smiling and laughing the whole time? And it's just, I love that you show up full when you can, which is usually all the time, even though I tell you go take a break and sit down somewhere. I love that you make light of things. I love that you have a sense of humor. Um, and I'm so grateful that you've thrived. And I want to hear about it. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, she just sideswiped me on this one. Because I adore her. I get to claim that I got her as a preemie, and
Yeah.
I've watched her just thrive into the top 10%, which is no easy thing at all. And I have to give mad kudos to that. Um, when I say her tagline is be valued, there is
Be
no
validated.
be validated. See, you got me all clustered because I have to do this. Be validated, because there's nobody better to have that tagline. Because if you know her, you need to listen to her show. Her show brings such inspiration and information. She's amazing. And to bring her now into the fact that, like, we do our own series here together and we've done so many shows together. We talk all the time off air, and she's just an amazing human being that I'm honored to call a good friend. And for her to be in the top 10% is just absolutely right. She's going to get in the top five very, very soon. I know it's coming. And people are just getting information they couldn't get anywhere else, and that's because of her. And that is a huge, huge, huge kudos to you.
Thank you. But we talking about you today.
Damn it. But everything I said was true.
You.
So what you're gonna have to be a little more specific. I hate talking about myself, and that's just not who I am. So you're gonna have to ask like specific questions, I guess.
Okay, when you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a lawyer. Believe it or not, because I was always the negotiator, captain of the debate team. I just, if I knew I was right, I wasn't going to back off. And I was a redhead, so I was like the little smarty pants. And my grandparents were from New York. My bio dad's, from up north too. So I used to mimic them and they would be like, go downstairs. I'll talk to you later. And I'll be like, I'm going upstairs and you'll talk to me now. And I just would, and I'll be like, we're going to sit down. We're going to talk. We're going to have coffee and we're going to work it out. You guys are going to hear me. And I'm like 6, 7 years old. And so, but my grandparents were the light of my life. And I implemented everything about them to be who I wanted to be, and didn't learn about the things that made me who I was until much later in life because of what I went through. I met with a wonderful human being named Dana, and we just did a show talking about like narcissistic family and why is it each child has that role, and it's so different than the others role in the family, the other siblings role in the family. And it's night and day different. And it took me forever to try to figure out why. What did I do wrong? Why am I the black sheep? Why? And none of the children have a relationship with both parents. Two of us aren't even allowed to go on the property, and it's absurd. It's absurd. And the other one has a relationship with the mom and not the dad. And I mean, it's just a huge ordeal, and it's stupid, and life is too short. So I didn't know till much later that the path that I was given as a child directed me into the arms of my abuser. And I didn't realize that. And people say all the time that narcissists, they're not parents. They're not the influential people. Our job as parents, as we both are, is to prepare our children for the next phase of life. And I have to disagree, because the bio parents who are narcissist and controlling and, manipulative and one way behind a mask and another out in public, they do teach us, but we don't realize it at the time. They're teaching us how not to be. They're teaching us that we need to break the cycle. They showed me, and you know what? I thank them. I do, because they showed me how to take their footsteps and walk in the other freaking direction, to go away from the emulating of who they would be, because I would never be that individual. And my grandparents taught me everything I ever wanted to be and more, and I took that, and that's where I came out to who I am.
And did your grandparents raise you?
Um, yes and no. Like, I had time with both, but I tried to be with my grandparents as often as possible. And even when I was with them, I was blamed for things that happened in my parents' house when I wasn't even there. And so, but they were like the light of my life. And there has never been, I mean, an apartment I've had, a house, everything, there's always a picture in them in every single solitary room. When my daughter was born, I had a picture of them over her in the incubator, and they're her guardian angels. And so they're everything to me. I mean, those are the people that I inspired to be as a human being. And there's no pictures of my bio parents. There's pictures of them everywhere.
And I've seen the pictures because it's your background on your computer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
And it's interesting that this is where we start, because I 2 weeks ago had a conversation on Impostrix podcast with a therapist and coach, mental health coach. Her name is Chiara Luna. Her specialty is childhood trauma and how childhood trauma creates our limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that opened my mind for me was this idea, like, I knew, of course, that bad things that happen in childhood like affect us. I did not know that even like the good experiences or the neutral experiences in childhood also affect our beliefs, whether they're limiting beliefs or not. And so I love how you talk about what your grandparents did for you. And so some of the things that Kiara talked about, which keep coming back to me because I'm parenting young children, is even how we react on like a daily basis when they ask us questions,
right?
Which are things that kids do.
Yes.
This is how they learn. And is it annoying? Yes.
I've met your kids. I love them. I love it.
Yeah.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yes. Very
I
annoying.
Love them.
And if, according to Kiara, if what we do when our children are asking us questions, if we yell at them all the time, if we show them that they're annoying us or that they're exasperating us or that they're inconveniencing us, then even though I'm not thinking to myself, I'm, perpetrating a trauma per se, they grow up thinking, trying to figure out a way to make themselves smaller, perhaps, to make themselves less of an inconvenience, less of an annoyance, which means as an adult when they grow up, they may not ask questions, they may not seek help from people. And I think the same is true on the flip side. If when they're coming to me with questions and I'm welcoming and I'm patient and I'm open, and even if I communicate, that's a great question. I can't answer it right now. Let's talk about it later. You know, all of those interactions, the good, the neutral, and the bad, impact who we're going to be when we grow up. And so I love shining light on your grandparents and the role that they played in your life in giving you strength and in watching over your daughter.
Thank
Because
you.
Lord knows she's been watched over.
She has. Everybody has said she wouldn't make it. The doctor said she wouldn't make it. They came to me, Whitney, when she was coding every day and having seizures every day, and they brought me pamphlets, and I was like, "Do not ever bring this to me again. Like, I'm telling you, don't." And I said, "She's coming out of here with me." And everything they told her she'd never do, she's done like tenfold. And it's great. And one of my proudest moments is they told, she basically has no tongue. It's a non-functioning, it's only like a couple millimeters way in the back. The anatomy in the mouth is totally different. And they told her it wouldn't move. They asked me if during one of her bronchoscopies if they should cut it off. And I was like, only if you want yours cut out, but don't touch it. Like, don't. They're like, well, it's not used for anything. It's just there. Well, if it's not bothering you, get away from it. Like, I'm not giving you
Mhm.
permission. Well, then I got those bubble gum stick things, and every day, come on, chase it, chase it, chase it, chase it. Did I know it would move? No, but I never gave up. She never gave up. And then when we went back for another visit, I said, go ahead. And I said, this is medical therapy. And she stuck out that tiny little thing that was just a little tip right on the edge. And it was one of my best moments as a mom because,
Wow.
she basically gave them the finger with the tongue. And I was like, there you have it. And I go back and I've asked her, and she's told me because she has had, if you call a relationship, with the bio parents, and whenever they would get negative with her, which was often, I shielded her immediately. Faith, you need to go somewhere else. I'm going to take care of this. Or if she come to me and say, they just said this and it hurt my feelings, and I'd be like, I'll be right back. And I would go get in the middle of it. I asked her, I said, everything I think of, I think very particularly before I say to her. And I've never spanked her, and I've never raised my voice to her. And I say to her all the time, like if she does something wrong, and I'll say, you know what, Faith, I love you. You are the most amazing person in my life, but I don't like what you just did. But that doesn't make me love you any less. I don't like the action that was just portrayed, and we need to talk about that. And then if she say she doesn't do her schoolwork, I tell her, I'm not taking your phone away. You're choosing to give it to me because you're choosing not to do your required
Mhm.
schoolwork. And if she looks at me and I'll say, your bedtime, you're choosing to stay up. I mean, you're a teenager. If you're choosing to stay up, that's your choice and you made it, but there's consequences, and that was your choice. And so now it's your choice to understand that you lose the phone for the week. Or, and she has said to me, you have never spoken to me like your parents have ever,
Mhm.
ever. And she goes, you've never raised your voice to me. And I told her, I said, there are times, no matter who you are in life, no matter who you are, you're going to get upset, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to get mad, but the words that can come out of your mouth at that moment can haunt you for the rest of your life. And I don't want Faith growing up in her adulthood trying to recover from her childhood, which is I'm still doing, and I don't want her to have to do that. And I don't want her to be self-conscious about anything because life is already too hard. And I'm not trying to make it any more difficult for her. And for her to say, you've always been there for me, Mom. You've always got my back. And I know that. And when I do something wrong, I'm not afraid to come to you. I'm not afraid for you to say to me, okay, let's look at what was wrong. It's a lesson. Let's learn it. And she comes and tells me things that I don't think a lot of teenagers tell their families. And that means the world to me that she's that comfortable to do that.
Yeah. Wow. I am not like Victoria, y'all. I have yelled at my kids. I'm not.
The patience of Job, I guess. I've heard that quite a bit.
Victoria is like my gold standard. And I've actually thought of you when it's time to discipline the kids or really just to talk to them about my disappointment. And even using some of the language that you've used around like, I love you. I don't love what you did. You're not bad. He made a bad decision.
Yes, it makes
Um,
a huge difference to them. It really does.
mhm,
It really,
mhm.
really does. You know,
Yeah.
it does. And I have to tell you, because we talked about it off air. Um, Faith has PTSD over everything medical, and they wanted her to have another CAT scan. And I told her, I said, here's the thing. And when you are told you have to go do something, she gets into this PTSD from all the medical she's been in her life,
Mhm.
which I totally understand. So I said, when someone tells you you can't do it, you knock it out the park. Like, you have a trach. We were decannulated years and years before you were supposed to be. You had a feeding tube. Okay, gone. Like, look at all this stuff. Seizures, gone. It doesn't make sense medically how you had 20 seizures a day and now you're seizure free. Like, how does this happen? And they told her she'd never eat by mouth. This kid will wear you out going to Golden Corral or whatever. She'll take you on, I promise you. So to see that, and then I talked to her about it, and I said, "Well, don't you want to know that everything is getting better since the last hospitalization?" And I said, "But I would want to be the one in charge. I wouldn't want a doctor to tell me you have to do this. I would want to say, you know what? I want to see that I'm better. I want to see it." So she thought about it and thought about it, and then she goes, "You know what, Mom? I do want to do it." Okay. And I said, it's just a ultrasound, so not like, whatever. It's nice little tummy massage. And she's like, "I want to do it on my terms." Okay. So I'm thinking, all right, I pull off that part of it. My husband was into this little thing I was trying to do, and he was like, "How are you going to do this? You need to have a little faith in I trust me." So last week, my husband's like, "I got to go to work." I let her sleep in. And then I act like neurotic and like, "Oh, I gotta go. I got things to do. Come on, come on, come on. Let's go, let's go, let's go." "Mom, I haven't eaten yet. I haven't done anything." I'm like, "Go get something on the way. Come on, come on, come on. I gotta go." And she's, "Mom," and I'm like, "You slept in. Let's go." So, she runs out and jumps in the car like a teenager with, her stuff not together. And I drive like back roads and stuff. And there's an outpatient facility. It's not the hospital. And I drive up, and she has no idea where we are. And so I drive up and I pull into the parking spot. She goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And this was the day after Thanksgiving on Friday. And
Oh.
and she goes, "Mom, you're good, but there's no way you're gonna walk in there and get this done." And I looked at her, I said, "You want to take a bet?" And she goes, "Yeah." And she goes, "But I want a dad here." I tapped her on the shoulder, told her to turn around. Dad's pulling in behind her. And she was
Hmm.
like, she just looked at me. I said, "You said you wanted to do it." And she goes, "I didn't say when." And she goes, "And we're not in there yet. I don't think you're going to get in here the day after Thanksgiving." Okay. So we walk in. I said, "Go sit." And then your dad's like, "She's pretty magical. She gets stuff done." And she goes, "Yeah, she ain't getting this done." So a couple minutes later, we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, "Faith, come on." And I just looked at her. Huh. And we all go back there, and she was phenomenal. She was phenomenal. And they said, "Everything's better. It's gone. It's great. She's doing fantastic." And so I was like, look at that. When it's on your terms and you realized it and you said, "I want to know for myself," you just found out you're all better. And guess what? There was no PTSD. There was no nothing. And I had a spinner ring for her she was wearing,
Mhm.
and she was holding that in one of those popper things that she
Mhm.
could play with. And she was like right on it. She was great. And then normally, she would make herself sick after a procedure or something. So I said, "All right, name where you want to go eat." And I was like, "Dad's going to work. It's girl lunch." And so she was like, "What?" I said, "Wherever you want to go." So I took her to one of her favorite restaurants. She gouged down on food like no tomorrow. So
Mm.
I said, "We got great news. Let's go to the cookie company." She ate like 4 cookies,
Yum.
and she was just happy. And I said, "Whatever you want to do, let's do it." And she was thrilled. And it's letting them know that they can do their way on certain things makes such a huge difference, because normally this would have put us back in the hospital. So I'm so
Mhm.
super proud of her. You see how I'm diverting
Wow.
to
I
talk.
do. Yeah, I was just gonna say, y'all see how I asked Victoria about herself. She talking about her daughter. Okay, I see you. We're gonna talk back about you, Victoria. And so I want to know, you said you wanted to be a lawyer. What did you wind up going into as
Law.
professionally?
Well, I went into law. I was in the corporate executive part of the world. I went through paralegal and graduated top of my class, and I did the whole investment thing as well. And I was also in law enforcement, and I did that. Not, I don't really know why. I did, but I did. I was the EA for big, huge corporate firms, and I used to travel cross country for work. And I got a master's in sign as well. And I was in the corporate thing, and then I was competing in martial arts and
Wow.
doing the law enforcement thing part time, and that's kind of where it all went at that point.
Wow. And so at what point did you meet and wind up being with your abuser, the person that abused you?
I was with Michael, my soulmate,
Yeah,
for 4.5 years.
the good one, the good
The
guy, not
great
the shitty
one.
asshole.
Right, right. The great guy. And I knew the day I met him, he was my soulmate. I knew right then, which was weird. And we broke up. And when we broke up, I was traumatized. I was devastated because he was my world. And
Mm.
I never allowed myself to get like that. Like it's so funny because before him, I had this like list, and this makes me sound like such a bitch. And you know me. So when I tell you this, you're gonna say, no way. I had this list. And my best friend, who God rest her soul, has passed away, she would laugh. Like she would say, "Oh, I got this guy from work I want you to go meet." And I would go meet him on a blind date. And I would get there first. I always drove. I would get there first, and I would sit with my back where I could see the door. And I would make sure I'm seated somewhere. And if he came in and there was anything on my checklist that I didn't like, I'm going to the bathroom. I left. I was such a bitch. And so, like, then she goes and tries to set me up with someone, and they're like, "Can you leave your keys? Because I heard you dying in Nash." And I was like,
Oh,
"The
what?
waiter, not on the waiter, just on you." So I had always had an extra set of keys in my purse that you can buy from, Home Depot or whatever. So I called her up and was like, "You owe me 350 because I just lost my set of keys." And so when I met Michael, Kim was like, "Oh, I hope he checks everything on your list that you can't stand." And I said, "You know what? Shut up." So, like, if you wore sandals with socks, you were out. I don't care. If you expect us, she's laughing profusely. If you expect us to do our hair and our makeup and look all presentable for you, if you're gonna get freaking lazy at your feet, you can walk those lazy ass feet right away.
Oh,
Because
lazy at your feet.
that is nasty. I don't want to be with someone who has a nice shirt and nice pants on, and then you freaking get lazy and you put on your sliders and some socks or something. No, no, can't do it. Hawaiian shirts back in the day, can't do it. Like, just can't. I can't. You're not Tom Selleck. Stop, stop. Can't do it.
This is hilarious.
It is not. I used to do it. I feel like such a bitch. I used to have this thing called the tag test, where I would say your tag is sticking up in the back, so I could pull the shirt back a little bit and push the tag down to see if they have hair on their back, and if they did, they were out. Like, I can't. I did. Look, I wish you guys could see Whitney. I couldn't stand a hair. I'm gonna get such negative people pressing me for
Oh
this.
my
I'm
gosh.
gonna get so much crap. Um,
We all have whatever. We all have our things or
right.
had.
Well, yes. And so I was like, I don't want to lay on a carpet. That's nasty. That's that. Get some wax. Like, wax it, shave
And
it.
I'm over here like, but that's how you know it's a grown man because they got some hair.
Okay, they can have a hairy chest or something, but they don't need a fur coat on their back.
Look, you can have hair anywhere you want for the 5 men who are listening. You can have hair wherever you want.
Okay. Anyway, so and back then I wasn't a country music fan. And if you listen to country music, I ain't listen to your truck running away with your dog, and I can't do it. So that was a thing too. And and I'm not perfect. I know that, but like, here I am. I was an executive. I had my own place. I lived by myself. I had a car that, I don't need a man for anything. And, it was like, if I want you there, you're going to be there. But if you expect me to be made up and me to be presentable, then there's a few things that I ask for. Like, I don't drink. So if you want a beer or two, fine. But if you're a lush, step out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be with that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met Michael, Kim was like, I hope he checks every box. So he did. I took them to dinner to meet each other, and she's like, I gotta know, what kind of music do you listen to? And he's like, country. And I literally just threw my head on the table. And he was in uniform. He was at work. And so she goes, so what do you wear when y'all go out? If you, and this is right when we met. And she goes, so if you guys go out somewhere, what are you going to wear? And he's like, oh, I wear jeans and a nice shirt and like sandals, flip flops. And I was like going under the table at this point. And she's cracking up. Like, she's like, she looks at me and goes, you're going to marry him. And I was just like, I
Flipping
hate
her
you.
off.
I'm flipping her off. I'm like, I hate you. So then she goes, have you done the tag test? I'm like, no. And she goes, if I looked in your closet, what would I see? And he goes, shirts, pants, why? And she goes, what kind of shirts? And he goes, well, there's nothing wrong with a nice pair, of jeans and your sandal, flip flops, whatever, and a Hawaiian shirt. And I literally slid. I slid. And I was like, son of a bitch.
Everything, every
Right.
last thing.
So she gave him the name Stucco because he was stuck on me and he wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. And so we were together 4.5 years. And then we broke up because I found out that things weren't copacetic, and that's all I'm gonna say. And
That's fine.
I rebounded the only time in my life ever. And when I met this very unattractive specimen of whatever, I was never attracted to him. But the personality that he portrayed was very alluring. It was they narcissistic psychopaths they're so good at what they do. And he knew the one thing I wanted was to be a wife and a mom, and he knew this. And so he played that card. And I told him that I wasn't in love with him. He met Michael. They hate each other. You've never seen combustion like that when they met each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe he'd be jealous enough to make this right and fix this. And
Mm-hmm.
nope. So of course this jackass is trying to like hurry me through the relationship.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm like, it's too fast. I just broke up with someone I was with for 4.5 years. And he's like, well, haven't we not been together long enough, and now we found the right one. And I'm like, I'm not in love with you. I was very upfront with him about it. And he's like, that's because you won't put your walls down. This man knew what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah, that manipulation.
yeah, I felt like crap. I did. I was like, maybe I am being unfair to him because
Wow.
everything like was compared to Stucco. Everything was like,
Yeah.
And so next thing I know, he's rushing me down the altar. I was sitting, tell you how old I am. I'm sitting in the bathroom with my Palm Pilot, trying to like,
Wow.
I know, trying to talk to my assistant to get a flight back because we had traveled cross country to get married, and trying to get a flight back because I knew he wasn't the one. Like, I knew it. And I was literally like, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't do this. What am I doing? And something huge came over me and said, something amazing is going to come out of this. You just have to get through this part. And I got up, and it's so ironic because I walked out and I was like, okay, we're getting married. And when we went to exchange vows and we did the unity candle like flashed back on him and lit his lapel on fire. And it got all this hot wax on him. So in the wedding photos, you see him behind with me, but in front of him where he can't see that part. And now I'm like, God told me that, he's going to hell. Like, it's so I didn't even live with him until after we were married. I didn't sleep with him until after we were married. And all my friends are like, you don't buy a car without test driving it. What do you? And I
I'm
didn't.
one of those. Yeah, I'm one of those.
And I didn't because it wasn't Stucco. It wasn't Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was miserable. And then we got pregnant right away, which is ironic. And then as soon as I got pregnant, the abuse started. And Michael was my call for help. He is the one that I called. And he did go to court with me numerous times against him. And now Michael and I are married, and he has adopted Faith, and he swears Faith is his. He just says, and this is horrible, I'm putting a trigger, because it's if you knew me and you knew Michael, they're always playful bantering, and Michael always says to me, oh, she's just my leftover. And I'm like, that's horrible. That's horrific to say that. And he's like, because she's my kid. That's my kid. They're so much alike that it really will make you wonder. And there's no way possible it could have been his. But he always would say, that's my leftover because she's mine.
Mm. And you experienced abuse while you were pregnant with Faith.
From the moment we knew we were
Oh my
pregnant.
goodness.
Yes. And I did make a deal with the devil. I did. I told him as long as he didn't go after my stomach, I wouldn't fight him back.
Mm,
Because the one thing you learn in any martial art training is that you de-escalate the situation. And when you are woken up in the middle of the night with your husband straddling over you, punching you in the face to wake you up to say, I'm thirsty, get your fat ass up and go get me some water, you know that this is not something that you're going to walk away from very quickly.
right. Wow. And so before we started recording, we were talking about just the perception that people who have not experienced this
Mhm.
type of intimate partner violence, some of the things that we say to try and make sense of this violence, and it's all awful. It's all victim shaming,
It is.
survivor shaming. It's all about, the person that has been abused did something wrong to deserve it. Why did they go back? All of those things. What was your experience like trying to leave? And were you able to find support? You talked about having Michael.
The first time I tried to leave, he shot and killed my puppy to show me what he would do if I left.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dumbfounded. And so I knew at that point that I had to get enough proof together so that not only I could survive, but I could keep my unborn child away
Mm-hmm.
from him completely. And so I had no help. I had no nothing. He would follow me to my exit. He would make me call from my office where a caller ID would show that I was in my office. He would make sporadic checks to come to my office, which you have to go through my assistant because I was in the back corner to get to me, and everything had to be a certain way. If you were 5 minutes late with dinner, then you more than likely either got your face bashed into a counter or a cabinet. Uh, Bed had to be made a certain way, laundry had to be done a certain way, and if not, he had to put you in your place. And so many people, I never told anybody, and so many people say, well, why did you have to have so many surgeries? You don't have surgery for something not broken. And that is such an important thing people need to understand. And I'm pregnant and I'm going in there because I'm being stabbed, I'm being raped, I'm being suffocated and strangled. And I went into Braxton Hicks, and I had one thing after another: broken jaw, broken nose, stabbed in the eye, stabbed down my arm, down my back. He tried to cut her out of me. And
Mm-hmm.
literally he was gonna take her out of me, and he tried. And so there's a huge incision in my groin from where he tried to cut her out. And he was military, and I'm not saying all military is bad. I always put that provision out, but there are some fabulous military people and there are some really shitty ones, and I happen to have gotten not only the shitty soldier but the shitty platoon that he was in. And they never did anything, and that's actually quite common in the military. They turned a blind eye and they protect their soldier. And
Mm-hmm.
that is something else that desperately needs to be changed. He broke my nose on the installation in front of his captain, and then nothing happened. They did nothing. They turned the other way, and then I got interrogated. Who was there when he broke your nose? What time of day was it? Who was around? What were you wearing? Anybody who's ever been through any kind of assault of any sort, battery, you don't pay attention to who is around you. You don't pay attention to what time is on the clock. You don't pay attention to, what anybody is wearing. You're paying attention to, oh my God, literally getting your nose cracked and all of a sudden blood profusely coming out like a faucet. It's terrifying. And you're pregnant, and then you think, I'm gonna faint, and this is what's going on. And I'm driving. Well, I was parked, but I would have been driving off the base, and nobody helped you. You don't pay attention to anything else. And the fact that you constantly get interrogated, it's supposed to be, and I know you're a lawyer, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. They
Mm-hmm.
put the guilt on us until we prove innocent. And the only thing we have is our word. That's the only thing we have.
Which is already not respected because
Correct.
one, the patriarchy, but two, because you're in the position, like you are someone, when you're in this position, the person that is abusing you does not respect you.
Right.
And so you're needing to muster that for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and having to prove to everybody what's going on. And this is something, I talk a lot about gaslighting on my show with this idea that like other people making you feel like what you experienced, you didn't experience. And like, I can't imagine going through this experience of having somebody actually see me be assaulted
Mm-hmm.
and turn the blind eye, because then I can only imagine what I'm thinking to myself is, well, I did something to deserve this,
Right.
because why else would somebody see this and then walk away
Right.
or
And I
not help me or not step, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said, so many times, why am I not getting help? And I said to his command, I said, you are military. I'm going to restrain from saying what branch. You are military, and your job is to protect the United States citizens. And if you can't do that on your own ground, on your own home front, who in the hell are you, and what are you doing overseas? You're not even protecting your own American citizens right here. It's your job to protect us. And it's all, well, you must have made him mad. Well, let me put that to rest right now. I don't care if the house is freaking clean. I don't care if dinner's on time, the food's not touching each other. The everything is copacetic to that point. If somebody cuts him off on the way home, if the mistress isn't seeing him tonight for whatever reason, if he gets ridiculed for whatever reason from anyone, no matter what it is, it's still going to come out and be your fault. He's going to come home and take it out on you, and it's your fault. No matter what you do to be in the eyes of perfect in his world to prohibit this from transpiring, he's still going to take it out on you. So people saying, well, what did you do to make him so mad? Why couldn't you have just done what he wanted? I did, and I own what I did. I'm not perfect. I absolutely, Whitney, own what I did. I okayed to me, he was never really a husband because that's not a marriage. I
Yeah.
okayed this piece of shit to have girlfriends because he'd be in that courting stage. He wouldn't have been abusive. And my number one priority was the safety of me and my unborn child.
Right.
So I
Right.
absolutely okayed him going out and having other women, because then he wasn't home hurting me
Right.
and he wasn't hurting my child. And people thought, what is wrong with this woman? She's telling him it's okay to go out and have affairs. It's okay to go out and be with other women. Why are you doing that? Because that saves me more physical, emotional, and psychological abuse.
And you got to do whatever you got to do
Right.
to, whatever little bit of safety you can scrounge up. And one thing that you said that so many people say around trying to find an excuse for the violence, like there is no excuse.
Mm-mm.
There's never an excuse. Even if you did do something, there is never an excuse to be hurt like that, to be assaulted like that. Um, and us even needing to ask the question can make people feel as though, well, there had to have been a reason.
We're getting abused all over again.
Right. And it's just, no, there doesn't need to be a reason. They There is no excuse.
A lot
um
of people, Whitney, say, and I apologize, I didn't mean to cut you off. A lot of people say, well, you can't really blame him. He had a really bad childhood. Okay, well, you and I both been through some shit, and we ain't tearing up people. We're not reconstructing their person. It's about stopping the cycle. You could bring Faith in here right now, and she'll tell you, I've never heard my mom scream. I've never heard my mom raise her hand or spank me or punish me or touch me inappropriately, as in a hit, slap, kick, nothing, nothing. One hit, one kick, one punch is one too many. I don't care. You have no excuse. Walk the fuck away. Sorry, I will put the disclosure out there, but it needs to be strongly said. If you are a quote unquote man, walk away, because there is
mhm.
no reason for you, or even for a woman, because there's women that are abusive,
Yep.
to put your hands on someone in an unwarranted manner. And if you do, you are not a man. You are a coward. You are an absolute coward. And to even decide to call yourself a man, that's ridiculous. And to say, well, I had all this mental trauma growing up, so it makes sense why I'm abusive. Really? Then I deserve to go on a spree. And I haven't. I have never. Even my therapist said for the longest time, if you ever have a breakdown, I'm going to say you deserved it. You're justified. And I said, girl, if I haven't gone to jail yet, I'm not going now. Like,
Yeah. I mean, because it's sad because I do think that some of us don't have the coping skills that we need. And that being said, it's still never okay for us to hit people. And some of the things that I've done because of my trauma are not okay. Like, it's not okay to do some of the things that I was doing. I've never been physically violent to somebody, but I've certainly been emotionally abusive. I've certainly been manipulative. I've certainly stolen things. I've done all sorts of things. And, sometimes this is just a part of learning how to cope. But this violence, somebody laying your hands on you, is never warranted, and should not be protected. Unless, of course, like Victoria was saying, you're doing what you need to do to keep yourself safe. Because I do know that immediately after you leave somebody is the most dangerous time.
absolutely.
So if that means you're leaving somebody and not going straight to the police, or not going, not doing what those on the outside would call protecting, you do what you got to do. And for those of us, I think, who have not been in this situation, it's so important for us to know that we cannot judge people, because judging people is what's going to, it's re-victimizing.
It is.
And for all we know, it's sending the people right back. It's giving them, you know, it's telling them you're already too fucked up.
Yeah, you're belittling them to the point they realize and think, maybe I'm never going to get anything better than this. This is all I can get. So I'm going to just stay where I am because I don't have any other choices. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I was doing a speaking engagement, and I've told this before, but it's such a powerful point that there was a girl there. I could see just by looking at her that she was either just out of an abusive relationship or getting out. And I'm guessing it was her mom. And so I said, 1 in 4 in the civilian sector go through abuse, 1 in 3 in law enforcement and military go through abuse. And those are the numbers that are reported. What isn't reported? Because they're afraid to report because nothing happens. So I sat down and I said, here's the thing. And I could tell by the look on the mom's face that she wanted to be anywhere but there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I looked at her and I said, here's the thing. And I said, your daughter is an absolutely exquisitely beautiful person. And she wouldn't make eye contact, very squeamish,
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. You could tell. And I said, are you here today as a loved one, or are you here today as a survivor? Because I don't like the term victim.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, oh, I'm here today because of, and I was like, okay, so you're going to come off that pedestal a little bit. So I sat on the stage, I sat down on the stage, and, so I'm a little more eye level. And I said, here's the thing. Good for you that you have never been abused. I'm so in awe. Really, I am. Good for you. But here's the thing. Is this your mom, and or this your daughter? And she's like, this is my daughter. Okay. I said, well, here's the thing. For just a minute, I'm going to use you as an example, and I hope that I don't offend you. And she's like, whatever. And I said, I hope you've never had cancer. And she's like, of course not. Like, she's above it or whatever. And I said, if God forbid one day you find out you have a frontal lobe tumor, you're going to want the best neurologist that's in there, the best one that's going to be able to make you cognitively coherent and be able to function and be able to just continue on the journey of life. And I said, would you go to a podiatrist? And she goes, what? And I said, would you go to a podiatrist for your frontal lobe tumor? And she goes, I said, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you knew what a podiatrist, a foot doctor. Would you go to a foot doctor? And she's so hoity toity,
Yeah.
how some of these Georgia
Yes.
snobby women. And I was like, would you? And she goes, no. And I said, okay, would you let your pedicure person take out your tumor? And she's like, really? Well, I said, I am getting to a point. I said, the reason I say that is because you're going to want the best neurologist who knows this field, knows what you're going through, knows how to assist you, and knows how to bring you out to the other side. You've never been in her field. She's never been in your field. And you know what? You're not doing anything. You're the podiatrist right now. And right now, she needs the chief neurosurgeon. She needs the best of the best to help her. And if you can't provide that, sit in a room with her. If she doesn't want to talk, just let her know she's not alone. If she wants to hold your hand, let her be the one to reach over and grab your hand. Don't reach over to her, because to her, somebody's putting a hand towards her again, and she might not be ready for it. If you offer her a place of, sanctuary, offer her a place to go, offer a place for her to be secured and safe. That is what she needs. She doesn't need ridicule, because the only time I use the term fighting is when you are fighting for yourself, because you're not a victim. I have 75% of my body is scarred, literally, and that is not an exaggeration. And I look down and saw my scars all the time, and I got so depressed looking at all of them, and I was even told by my family, in quotes, that I looked like Freddy Krueger and the Elephant Man had a baby. And if I was bored, I could just take a Sharpie and connect all the dots, and it would take me hours and hours. And that was by my dad. And it was like, I would eat lead before I would say that to Faith. There's no way. And so I looked back on those scars, and I looked down at this girl, and I said, you know what? That's your body of armor. That tells you how many times that stupid coward tried to take you down and failed. That's what it is. That's showing you that you're the bigger, better person, because you thrived. You survived. And he had to come back so many times because he couldn't get you where he wanted you, because you're better than that. And you might not see that right now, but I do. And you might think that all that light within you is gone, but I'm here to tell you, even the tiniest flicker of life can start a wildfire. It's just that tiny flicker, and I still see it, and I'm going to help bring that back out. I'm going to help come back out, and you're going to be 2.0, and you're going to be a million times better than ever before. And in the end of the day, he's still got to look in the mirror, and he's still his shitty ass self.
Shitty ass self.
Nothing's going to change it.
And one of the things that you said around safety is, I was trying to think of, who do I want to be when somebody needs me? And I want to be a space of safety. I want to be a space of safety for my children. I want to be a space of safety for my coworkers. If they're just having a shitty day, I want to be a space of safety for people that I'm working for. I want to be a space of safety for people who need help. Mm-hmm. I do not want to be the person who's ridiculing people or judging people. And I'm not perfect. I be judging. My friend Victoria and I were talking, she was talking about wearing socks with sandals. I hate that shit too. I will judge you, okay? Like, I'm not perfect, but when it comes down to the stuff that matters, whether or not somebody has a safe place to go without judgment, like, I don't fucking know. I don't know what this is like. So who am I? And I think that that's so important. But I think this is a good segue, Victoria, because I want to know how A Contagious Smile came about. You obviously are a survivor. And like I said at the outset, you're a thriver. Like, there was a glimmer, there was a flame inside of you that has erupted. And we know about Faith and how amazing she's doing, which is only because she has a strong mother to turn to. And she has a great relationship with her father, with Michael. And so I want to hear about A Contagious Smile.
Well, just to go back for a second, you did say, and you hit such an incredibly valid point, is it is the most dangerous when you do get out. Because I was told I had a 2% chance of survival when I was in the ICU. And I said, that's better than 1. And I fought and fought. And after she was taken and she was life flighted to a children's hospital, I did everything I could to fight to get out of that hospital because I wasn't with her. And my fear was he was going up there. Mm-hmm. And that was really hard. And they told me I wouldn't live to the parking lot if I got up because of all the damage and abuse and blood clots and everything else that I had from him kicking me square across the room. And we went through this part, and then there was a event, if you will, after, where he put a gun to my head and he occluded her trach until she stopped breathing. Like, can you imagine as a mom seeing your 2 kids as babies look up to you and stop breathing? Like, you're literally suffocating this kid, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, the baby stopped breathing. I was in the kitchen.
I have nightmares about this all the time. Like, I have intrusive thoughts about people breaking into the house and harming my children. So no, I cannot imagine
Well,
actually seeing this happening.
I was in the kitchen cleaning out her feeding bag, and it was a big open thing. And he all of a sudden the machines weren't working, and she literally was blue. And he just said like nothing. She's blue. And I immediately dropped everything because I was cleaning out the feeding bag because we don't get that many with insurance. And I go over there and she's not breathing. And I immediately start CPR. I'm calling, 911. And I know if I hang up the phone, I'm dead, because the minute I picked up the phone, I
Mhm.
hear the gun get cocked to my head. And I kept saying his name. And I kept saying, can you open the door? I need you to do something. Why won't you help me do first aid to our daughter? And I kept using all those terms, using the words,
Mhm.
and I'm watching her fade away, and I won't stop. I'm still working on her, and I wouldn't hang up the phone. And that was it. Like, I didn't care. We were no longer going to be here. And so when we got out of there and we got to the hospital, um
So did police or EMS come?
they did. And then I rode with them, which
Yeah,
infuriated him
yeah.
that I rode with them.
I'm sure.
Yeah, he
You
was
wouldn't have made it. You were not going to make it to the hospital had
no,
you.
no. And he was furious that I left him alone to go with her. And so when he finally made it up there hours and hours later, he whispered in my ear what he had done to her, which at that point I didn't know. I just knew she had stopped breathing.
Okay.
And you go into such a oh my God mode, and you go into a training mode, that you don't think about, why is the Apple machine off? Why is the
Right,
pulse ox monitor off? Why
right,
you don't think about that? I'm looking at her. I'm not looking at
right.
him. So she ends up having to need more surgery. I end up immediately termination of rights begin. I go and get protective orders, which don't do shit. I
Mhm.
get a TPO, and then I get restraining, criminal trespass, you name it. I'm going after it. And then when I first saw her smile, Whitney, she had craniofacial abnormality. And
Mhm.
so her smile was different. And
Mhm.
all of the kids in the ICU, NICU, PICU, TICU, they all had different smiles, and they were infectious. They were contagious. And her craniofacial doctor said, every time we see parents around, you're giving them advice like, you need to go get this waiver. You need to go do this. You can do
Mhm.
that, because Faith was in a medically induced coma. And, I couldn't stimulate her. So I could just hold her and let her hold my pinky, but I couldn't do anything. And so I would sing to her and read her stories, and I would talk to other parents. And the craniofacial doctor said, you're doing an injustice not doing something to help others, like, really. And so that's where I was like, I don't even know what I would do, and I don't know what to call it. And then I'm looking around and I'm like, man, all of these smiles are just contagious. And it's the fact that none of them are the same, but they're all happy. These kids are happy to be alive and thriving. And that's where Contagious Smile came from.
Wow. Wow. I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine being a mother to Faith who has overcome so much and getting to see her now. And this young girl has a sense of humor. She is silly. She is sweet.
She's a
She
smart
is
ass,
fiery. Yep. I was just about to say, just like her mom. Uh,
but I love it. It's great. She's hilarious. I mean, she's such a smart ass, but it's great. Like, Michael said, you are a smart ass. And she goes, oh, see, I got it from both of you. I get my smarts from my mom, and I get being an ass from my dad. And, or he'll say, you know what? You need to, like, stop being such a, he calls her a PETA, and she calls him a PIMA. And he goes, you know what? You need to stop being a PETA. And she goes, well, you know what? If you have a problem with me, you need to go back to the manufacturer. And it's like, she's so quick. She's so quick witted. And then he'll say something like, he's the only person who can get away with it. He'll say something like, oh, you want, come on, come get me. And she goes, silly boy, don't you know that if you ever got dumb enough to raise a hand, you'd be up in the ICU? Don't you know this by now? Like, you would be in the ICU. And she's like, and if you ever cheat on my mom, snip, snip, Mo, snip, snip. Like, it's just, it's hilarious. And it's just the funniest thing. ever. And she's just right on it. You can't get better timing from her. It's great. I love the banter between the two of them.
That's awesome. What's one of your favorite things that you love to do with Faith?
Right. She's a writer. She's published. She got an Amazon bestseller out there. She's working on another one. Um, we sing together. We write together. She advocates, like every year we do fundraisers, and she never wants any of the gifts. She wants to help other kids like herself. She's done that since she was 4. She has the biggest heart I've ever seen on a human being. And her thing is, she's like, I don't want to be famous. I just want to help people. And how many teenagers do you know that? I mean,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, this really goes back to how you raise her, how you treat her, and how Michael treats her. Because she only knows having a big heart. She only knows caring about the things that actually matter, but that things like gifts make people happy. It's not that they don't matter because they make people happy, particularly people who don't have that. But she
right.
knows that she has you and that she has Michael and that you all are a gift and that you have fought for her time and time and time and time again. Um, so of course she's like this because you've given her the tools that she needs to be like this.
Well, the one
Um,
thing she does that's hysterical is the other day he was like, I have a beautiful daughter. And she goes, yeah, I look just like my mom. I'm like, whatever. And so she goes, by the way, Dad, I'm not beautiful. I'm smoking hot. And I said, oh my God.
okay, smoking hot babe.
Right. And she has her own style, like the way she dresses, she has her own style. And she just, and I embrace it. I'm like, if this is what you love and this is what you want to do, then let's do it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
As long as I have this saying, reach up and touch your toes. If something shows, go change your clothes. Like you're not going out looking like Gucci. It's just not gonna happen. And so if she wants to wear shorts, they're going to be respectable. If she wants to wear combat boots and, thigh high socks, it make her look like Dr. Seuss. Okay. I'm okay with it. I totally embrace her way that she expresses herself. And, she has that room to have that. And she loves that. And she, will come to me and tell me things. She's like, Mom, I thought about getting my lip pierced. And I'm like, and I thought about, no. And I said, I'd let you get your nose pierced. And I did. And now she's like, okay, I can't wait to get my first tattoo. And I was like, I was 30. And she's like, well, I'm not. And so, and she's just so sweet, but like she's so big about like other things, helping other people. She's got such a big heart, and it's warms my heart. I tell her if we can make one person smile a day, we're doing way more than most of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
And I did
It
divert
really
a lot
is.
from me. I'm so proud of that.
Wow. So how long has a contagious smile been a thing? I guess since she was a baby.
18, almost 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you all raise dogs, support dogs. What do you call what are they called? Support animals.
Emotional support dogs.
Emotional support dogs.
Yeah. We have
And they're
18
beautiful.
right now. 4 in the house.
They are beautiful. And do you and Faith both have emotional support dogs, right?
Yes. I have Stucco, who's my handsome stud, and he's the dad. And of course, Faith says he's the sperminator, just like dad used to be. And then that's why we named him Stucco, is because the moment I saw him, I knew. The moment I was like, he's mine. And I've always had girls. And he was the first boy I've had. And I knew. And then Faith said, no, Mom called him Stucco because she knew right when she saw him, she wanted him. She goes, I call him Stucco because he is a hoe, just like my dad used to be. And so, yeah. And then she'll be,
Dang.
we have Lady, and then we have the Tramp, and she points to Michael. So, yeah. Yeah. But so we have Rusty and Uno, and they're Stucco barking. And Maverick in the house, and then we have the mamas and the little babies outside, and they all their kennels have their own heating system, air conditioning system. I go out there with little air cool mats in the
Wow.
summer. If it's too cold, my husband thinks, what is my wife doing? Because I bring them all in the house, and he's like, they have their own heaters in their kennels. I'm like, I don't care, they're my babies, I don't care. And he was like, there's like 15 dogs in this house. I'm like, well, then you can go outside because they're staying in the house. It's too cold.
So now I'm going to ask you a hard question. What do you and Michael do to keep your marriage
Oh, this is so
together?
simple. This is so easy. We're best friends, first and foremost. Best friends. We've never had a fight. We've never had a
Mm.
fight in all these years. Now don't get me wrong, he can get under my gillet faster than but we've never had a fight. We are always on the same page, which irritates me because I for Christmas, I decided I was going to get him something. And then that day, he says, oh, I had a cup of espresso and it was so good. We need to get an espresso machine. And I was like, I can't stand you. Like, I don't like you. And he goes, why? And that was Monday. And we came back from Longhorns. And at the front door was the espresso machine that for some reason wasn't put into a box when I ordered it. And so it was out there and you could see the box, gourmet, one touch, cappuccino, espresso, dream machine. And he just started laughing. And this happens all the time. We did it with our wedding rings. We picked the same ones without looking and helping one another. We get married again every year.
Hmm.
Marry every year. And we don't fight. We just get along really, really well. We laugh all the time, like constantly laugh. And that's really important. That's a really important thing.
Yeah, laughter is healthy.
It is. It's fantastic.
I saw this cute like TikTok the other day. It was of this guy. Okay, so it was filmed from the woman. The woman was filming and she had bought her partner a dog, a little puppy. And then the partner walks into the apartment and he's like, oh, I can't believe this. Oh, this was bad timing though. But oh, I can't believe this. And then so he's hugging up on the dog and she's like, why is it bad timing? And he says, you might want to go out and look in my truck. So she goes out to look in the truck and he had gotten her a dog. And I guess I was reading in the comments that like he wanted a beagle or something, a hound, and she wanted a lab, and they couldn't agree. And so they both went and bought each other what they wanted. And then they had two dogs.
Oh yeah. That's very, very common. Like he comes home and he's always like, wife is first. And he comes over and he gives me a kiss. And then I work 20 hours a day and everybody knows that. And I get such shit from it. And if you could see what needs to
I'm
be,
rolling my eyes.
I know. But when he goes to bed, I climb in bed with him and I just keep working in bed when he goes to sleep. And then when he gets up, I get up with him and then I stay up therefore going forward. So I only get a few hours a night of sleep, but we do that. We always have dinner together as a family. There's no electronics at the table. He has movie night with Faith every week religiously, where it's just daddy-daughter time. There's just things that we will not, there's no levy on. Like it's this, and
Yeah.
there's nothing going to come between. I don't care who it is or what it is. If somebody's like, hey, you guys want to do this and it's movie time? No, it's their movie time. It's their set in stone time to watch movies. So that's what they do. But there's so much laughter all the
Mm.
time. Like everywhere we go to dinner and Faith's like, hey, you have a senior citizen menu for dad, grandpa? You know, she's always like, hey, abuelo, just all the time. And it's just constant and it's hysterical. So it's about laughter and love, and there's nothing better in the world than those two things. If you have those, nothing else matters.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing your
It's
story
much
with us.
easier than I
So,
thought you were going to be on me.
well, okay. So what's a hard question that you thought I was going to ask that I didn't?
I plead the fifth. It's
So annoying.
mean.
So annoying.
No, I can't wait because next time is my turn. And I'm
Well,
not
and
mean.
So you have to go easy on me then, because you see
Oh
how I
no,
go easy on you.
crazy. No, absolutely not. uh-uh. But I'm so
So
sure.
what are your plans for a contagious smile?
I tell everybody that it's people like you who have been guests on. We have three podcasts. Well, actually, now we have five different podcasts that we're doing every week. I'm going after Dave Campbell's record, I think.
Oh
And
my
who,
gosh.
if anybody's out there, go listen to Dave Campbell. He's amazing. Go support him. Whitney's known him. Whitney's been on his shows. He's
Love
fabulous,
them.
fabulous. Um,
Hmm.
that we have been very blessed. We have millions and millions of followers, and if it helps, then that's all that matters to me. And that's where people are like, oh, what are you doing to get that many? I'm not doing it. It's my beautiful guests like Whitney who come on and provide facts and give inspiration on topics nobody wants to talk about for whatever reason, and I have no fear of talking about it. So and people have asked me so many times, are you worried that this guy is going to come back? Are you worried that he's going to come back around? And I said no, because my whole property has cameras on it everywhere. We have like 15 cameras on the property, and it's because we have all these puppies and we have the alarm system. My husband and I are both gun carrying people. I carry more weapons than he does, and I only have one hand, and we are very protective, and I'm not worried about it. And one of the things that I guess if you ask, one of the things that happened in court as a lawyer, I know you would understand, is I told the attorney, because they asked me what I would do if the rights weren't terminated. And that's a very hard process to get done, because you have three different judges. They interrogate you, they interrogate him, you get a guardian ad litem. It's a very long, stressful process. And I told them I would return home or back to the house of him, because there was no way I would ever let him be alone with my child again. And I was serious. I said, I cannot let him take her into anywhere alone. And he ended up in child pornography and all sorts of other things.
Hmm.
So I was given the rights of termination, and we had to swear under oath, and we did. And under oath, he swore he would cause physical, emotional, moral, and sexual harm. He said this under oath. So I said to the judge, I said,
Goodness.
I want to say right now on record that I have no intent whatsoever of ever going and finding him geographically. I will never go to his place of employment. I will never go to his place of residence. I will never seek him out, and I will never hit him first. However, if he comes after myself or my daughter, who I have every right to protect and defend, then I have the right to do so, as I am disabled because of him. And so I won't hit him first, but I will. And the wording is so critical. I said, I will stop the threat. And the
Hmm.
judge looked at him and said, how many times did you hit her? And he said, if I hit her once, I hit her 200 times. And he goes, so you trained her to take your punch? And he said, if she cried, I hit her again. If she made a sound, she'd get hit again. And so he goes, you've trained her like a boxer, like a fighter. And he said, do you hear what she's saying? She has no intention. I said, Your Honor, he had enough of my life. He's not getting anymore. I'm not allowing him that control and power. And I said, and you know what? I'm not pregnant anymore. So if he violates these orders of the court and he violates your orders, sir, then I have the right to stop the threat. And he said, what she is saying is she won't hit you first. She's going to kill you, and she's going to
Hmm.
get away with it. And it was at that moment that I only saw fear in him for the first time.
Hmm.
And the judge said, I want you to soak this up, because it'll be part of your healing process for you to see that he is very uncomfortable with what you just said.
So he didn't go to prison?
I had him dead to right on 9 felonies, not only photographs, but medical records to coincide with the photographs that were dated. I had sworn affidavits from nurses, doctors, and other individuals who saw and witnessed things. But I kept going for help, and nobody did anything through the military. So I finally, after he occluded her trach and put the gun in my head, I went to the civilian sector. I'm a civilian. I wasn't
That's
at
right.
military. And then when I did, they locked his ass up. And then we went over to the bind over hearing. And due to a technicality, when the judge said who took out the warrants, and it was the civilian detectives, he was supposed to be where they go through with the MPs. Then they go, and when you study, you don't get the specifics, in and outs of everything for military.
Nothing. You get nothing. You know
Right. It's
nothing. I know
totally separate.
nothing
Right.
about military law. Yeah.
Right. So we they said that MPs are supposed to open an investigation, then CID gets involved, and then they decide, and then they work with the outside department, and then they decide what they're going to do from there. And because that wasn't how it went, it was released on a technicality. Now, the worst part of it, even more, was that I even wore a wire and got him on tape confessing to absolutely everything, because he would brag about it, because he said, I'm unstoppable. Nobody's going to get me. Nobody's going to stop me. I killed my dad. I did this. I did that. He killed another wife, which I didn't even know he was married before. And
Oh my
so
God.
all of this was on tape. And because of how the warrants were taken, and because military quote unquote protocol wasn't done, even though I had their advocate's business card with the advocate's phone number on it in her handwriting. And they said, oh my God, you must have slipped through the cracks because we thought you were taken care of. I said, how would I know what transitional compensation is in the military if I wasn't told about it? I mean, if you don't go through and learn anything, how would you know what that is if you're not given that information? I had the pamphlets from the advocacy office. I said, how would I have this? How would I know exactly what I'm supposed to get, which I got not a dime of? They didn't even continue my insurance coverage. They gave me nothing. And he got out medically and he gets his pay for the rest of his life.
Oh my gosh. He got an honorable discharge?
Medical discharge.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And so I said, how would I have all this? So I wanted Faith to see that when you are strong in belief on something, that you don't back off. And it was very important for me to see that. And again, as a lawyer, I know you know this, then I sued the military privately,
Okay.
and it went all the way up. And because it was a minor involved, we ended up doing an NDA, and it was a
Mhm.
closed, and private settlement
Yep.
because of a minor involved. And so I can't say certain things,
Yep.
but the money is nothing. It's nothing. There is a cap on it. And then when you pay your attorney and then the fees,
Yeah.
you don't have enough for anything. Like nothing. You literally, I mean, let's just take it wasn't $100,000, but let's just say it was. If you have $100,000 and your lawyer gets 50%, that's 50 grand right off the bat that you don't get. And then say there's however much an expense is. Well, you take that out too. And then what do you have?
Yep.
Nothing.
Yep.
You have a pot to piss in if you're lucky, and it better be on sale when you buy it. That's about what you get. And so, but it wasn't about that. It was about the fact that I wanted her to see that somebody needed to be held accountable for what happened. And I wasn't going to back off until it was. And so we won.
Wow. Mm-mm-mm. And it's, the sad reality is this is many people's experience with the legal
Yes.
system, whether or not it's the military system. As a lawyer who's represented people who are survivors of domestic violence, um, there is like we do have to prove things. And it does mean sometimes re-traumatizing because
Mhm.
maybe you have to share what you experienced out loud to a complete stranger or a whole room of strangers.
Right.
Um,
But the abuser is taken with kid gloves.
mm-hmm. Like yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine how burdensome it would feel,
Mhm.
because that is what the law requires. And so again, when we're relatives and loved ones and family members or ourselves, like we need to be treating survivors with grace, with
Yes.
love, because this is not going to be easy. Nothing about leaving someone is easy.
No.
And then adding all of the manipulation and the narcissism and the abuse and the financial abuse and the emotional abuse. And I don't have health insurance now and I don't have income anymore. It's the last thing that they need is ridicule.
It is. It's a very scary and hard thing to go through, and you feel like you have no support, but you have to stand strong. And I looked at my beautiful girl who fought and overcame everything that was put in front of her, and I said, "You are not going to get that shadow scared at every noise mom after everything you've done for me to be here today. I am going to dust myself off and be the mom that you deserve." And I've never once looked at her and said, that she was his, because there's no part of her that's him. You know, 2 pugs and a push do not make you a dad. That's all I've got for that one.
Clearly.
It doesn't. And you know, when I look, people say to me all the time, doesn't she remind you of him? Not at all. Like there's nothing about her that reminds me of him at all. And so it's really the fact that your kids deserve more and you deserve more. And haven't these assholes had enough of your time and worth? You only have one heart. You can fill it with hatred and toxicity, or you can fill it with love, memories, and shine your light and help other people. Life's too short. And I'm the one
Right.
person to tell you that it's too short.
And there's another side of the rainbow. Like it might be a steep challenge to get there, but there's another side, and Victoria's proof of that.
Oh, I love you.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us. I know you didn't want
No,
to,
I didn't.
but you did. And I know that it's helped somebody.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Come up with a name. I'll put that on you.
Next time we talk, Victoria is going to interview me. That will be interesting.
So
You're right. That doesn't, it's not a good feeling. It's not great. It's not great.
oh, now you know, right? Now you're like, and you have to
Saying it.
now you're going to be like, oh, what is she going to do? But you know me, and you've been on interviews with me before. I'm more on that compassionate, shine the light on your growth and show how you have flourished. I don't do the negative, toxic stuff. It's about how amazing you've grown into who you are.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to
Exactly.
belittle you in any way. So that should be
No, I
easy.
know that.
I know, but to know you're getting interviewed is tough. It's really tough. And to know you're going to talk about a subject that's so sensitive that it makes it even tougher. It's hard. So I get it.
But we can do hard things. Isn't that what
Yeah.
Glennon Doyle says? We can do hard things.
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, Whitney.